Elizabeth, thank you. Great show. So look who is talking now. Housing, groceries, drugs, and taxes. So what is in Kamala Harris's plan? Will it resonate? What's already being picked apart? Plus, Donald Trump and the bulletproof glass. The new look, the new changes to expect when he hits the trail this weekend. Also tonight, the educator who wants to mandate the Bible in every single classroom. He is now daring members of his own party to try to impeach him. And he joins us live here on the Hill tonight. Welcome to Washington and the most politically unpredictable show on all of television. I'm Blake Berman. What a way to end the week. My goodness. This is the Hill on NewsNation. "81 days until Election Day, but the first time we have heard the Democratic nominee tell America what they would do as the President of the United States. Finally, the first policy drop for Kamala Harris, the economy, a broad outline of her vision.
As President, I will be laser focused on creating opportunities for the middle class that advance their economic security, stability, and dignity. Together, we will build what I call an opportunity economy."
So you notice there how she said, "I call." That is a distinction from President Biden, her vision going forward. It looks something like this. Harris wants to hold back Uncle Sam from parents. She wants to increase the child tax credit to $3,600, introduce a $6,000 credit for parents of newborns, expand the tax credit for lower-income Americans, and offer a tax cut to those who get their insurance using the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. Harris says she wants to give tax incentives to build homes, strip away breaks for those who buy homes in bulk, and offer a $25,000 credit for first-time home buyers. She's also vouched for price caps for prescription drugs and said she wants to cancel some medical debt. Harris also outlined how she wants to take on what she calls corporate price gouging and would allow the government to levy fines. Already bipartisan criticism of that idea. It is not just Donald Trump who is making this claim right here.
Now Kamala is reportedly proposing communist price controls. She wants price controls. And if they worked, I'd go along with it too, but they don't work. They actually have the exact opposite impact and effect, but it leads to food shortages, rationing, hunger.
Homes, taxes, drugs, groceries. Version 1, issue number 1, 81 days to go. We begin tonight here on the Hill with the Congressman Gabe Amo. He is a Democrat from the state of Rhode Island. Congressman, thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it. So let's talk about some of this plan from the vice president and what she calls, quote unquote, corporate price gouging. If you've lost the Washington Post and the New York Times as a Democrat, you might say that you've lost the policy. Here's some of what they said today. Opinion piece, quote, "When your opponent calls you communist, maybe you don't propose price controls." And Barack Obama's former top economist, Jason Furman, here's what he said. Quote, "This is not sensible policy, and I think the biggest hope is that it ends up being a lot of rhetoric and no reality." That from a top Democratic economist. Is that what this is, a lot of rhetoric? Because at the end of the day, it's price control, is it not?
Well, first off, thanks for having me, Blake. Look, I think what we heard out of the vice president today is an articulation of what Americans are feeling. Americans are feeling that they are constricted, that they do not have the freedom to thrive in this economy. So if you look at, in totality, what the vice president put forward is an agenda, yes, to drive forth an opportunity set of policies for people across this country, but it's also to be responsive to what we have heard over the last several years, that Americans aren't all feeling the benefits of our booming economy. So when we look at it, as someone who grew up in a middle-class household, looking at buying a home, looking at price gouging, looking at the child tax credit that, as we know, from the American Rescue Plan, cut child poverty by 50% in this country. That's what we're focused on. And I think, any conversation. But people do want details, though, right? And she started to lay out some of them. And I was digging into it, Congressman. And for example, on taxes, right? It's reasonable
to know what you're going to pay in taxes. That's not a big request, right? So here's some of what the vice president was talking about today. First off, there are 162 million taxpayers in the United States, okay? She was talking about the child tax credit. I went through these numbers. 46 million people, 46 million taxpayers tap into the child tax credit. The earned income tax credit, another 23 million. The Affordable Care Act, health insurance, she wants to cut taxes there, 21 million. Add all this up, you get 90 million. And it's probably smaller than that because there's likely some overlap here, right? There's 162 million taxpayers in this country, Congressman. You, for example, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not tapping into the child tax credit as a member of Congress. You're not doing any of this either. There's some 70 million taxpayers out there, I think including yourself, who don't know what the vice president wants from them as it relates to taxes.
Well, I think, look, more of those policies are to come, but let's be very clear. Former President Trump...
But doesn't she owe details now, I guess, is the point?
That's part of a campaign, Blake, and we will get those along the way. This was the first major policy drop, as we've noted, and we know what former President Trump has put forward, an extension of those the tax cuts that cut the corporate tax rate to a level that corporations weren't even seeking. When we look at the concentration of wealth that has occurred because of those tax cuts, we know there is more work to do. So we're going to hear the vice president continue to lay out the case for why we need to invest in creating opportunities versus doubling down on trickle-down economics.
Okay, the case to come from the vice president, I hear you say. Here's some of the argument. You mentioned Donald Trump. Here's what he was saying today. I'll get your reaction, or in the recent days. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Harris has just declared that tackling inflation will be a day one priority for her. It's going to be day one. But day one, really, for Kamala was 3.5 years ago. Where has she been? And why hasn't she done it?
Why hasn't she done it, Congressman?
Well, look, I think you have seen the latest numbers. Inflation is at the lows that we haven't seen in years. And it took a lot of work. We were at the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic. We know the chain reaction that had on the entirety of our economy. And now we are seeing the benefits of real thoughtful policy from President Biden and Vice President Harris. So, in fact, they have been on the case. President Trump is frankly just focused on name calling and distractions from the progress that has been made. That's undisputable if you talk to any economist.
So let me leave you with this. One of her policies today, a $25,000 average down payment as it relates to for first-time home buyers. Okay, $25,000. You probably have a lot of home buyers who bought homes this year or at any point during the Biden administration that say, wait a minute, I'm not going to get in on that $25,000 and are probably a bit upset, I would imagine. But the vice president also said this, and here's the larger point, Congressman. Because you have a campaign where we're going to give you this, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you that, no tax on tips. And here's what she said today.
As president, I will take on the high costs that matter most to most Americans. We will do this while reducing the deficit.
We will do this while reducing the deficit is laughable, is it not? Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican. Oh, come on. I mean, $1.4 trillion in fiscal year 2022, $1.7 trillion in fiscal year 2023. I know you're going to say it's come down lower, but we're talking trillions, Congressman.
Blake, if you look at what the agenda that former President Trump wants to put forward, right, which is continued giveaways to large corporations. If you look at the cost savings that we are starting to achieve because of the negotiation of prescription drug prices through Medicare, we can achieve those savings and ensure
$35 trillion in debt, though, is where we are. I mean, this is both sides. This is Democrats and Republicans.
If you look at the budgets that President Biden has put forward every year, they have sought to cut our deficits, and we have to continue to make progress on this work. And I don't expect it to happen overnight, but Vice President Harris is willing to do the hard work to get there.
Congressman Gabe Amo from Rhode Island, thanks for coming on, answering the questions, rather. Appreciate it. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Blake.
You got it. All right, joining me today here on the Hill throughout the hour, T.W. Origi, former communications aide to the South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. and Mike Pompeo. Scott Bolden, NewsNation contributor. Denise Gitsum, NewsNation political contributor as well, Republican strategist. Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist, NewsNation contributor. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. Why are you laughing?
Well, we've been switched up 2 days
right.
now.
Well, you mentioned her, and then
did I? Okay. All good. So there's a lot there, right? She tried, Kurt, to unveil her policy, and I think you saw some real questions there. About a third of the taxpayers have no clue what it means for them. You've got Democrats coming out even calling these price controls, and for any politician to tell you they are reducing the deficit is laughable.
Well, I think that if we level the playing field when it comes to actually who's paying taxes in this country, stop giving tax breaks to the wealthiest 0.1%, you can actually achieve some of these means. You can lower the deficit and make sure that government programs are being funded.
It's not going to happen.
Right, but again,
we got a $35 trillion debt.
But if we're going to, this is what always gets me. People say, we want details from Kamala Harris. We want specifics. So she offers specifics, and then people say, well, that could never happen. So then why is it that we have this barometer for politicians that, well, when you run, we want you to offer these proposals that all of us know, because with a Congress the way that it is, with a narrow Senate and a narrow House, no matter who's in control, no one's big plans are going to ever get done, right? So why do we make them do it?
We deserve to know vision, do we not? What did you see from her vision?
But Blake, you got vision. Yesterday or Tuesday, I was on the program, and you said, "What do you want to see from her speech?" And I said, "No details. I want bullet points."
And I said, thank you for your sincerity.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what you got. You got bullet points. Listen, these bullet points are about getting inflation down, but more importantly, getting people to feel that inflation is coming down. Because, at 2.9%, which is the lowest since 2021, what's not coming down? Housing is not coming down.
Oh, I know.
We have a housing crisis. We have a shortage of housing. And so a lot of this is about people being first-time home buyers. If you're a homeowner like me, you're having a ball right now in this market. Yeah. But if first-time home buyer, or if you want to sell, you can't afford it because of the interest rates.
Here's part of the issue for the Republicans. Play the Kamala Harris soundbite from today as well.
Now is the time to chart a new way forward. Now is the time to chart a new way forward.
Your guy's nearly 80 years old. He's been on the front page every single day for 10 years. Americans told us they didn't want a Trump-Biden rematch, and now she's basically saying, I'm past this, see ya.
I mean, you can say everything you want about any way forward, but we have plenty of things to go on from her past that speak otherwise. We have a record for Kamala Harris. We have a record for Donald Trump as well.
There's no real Harris record.
I mean, there's no record of her being in the White House and being in...
Not like Trump. I mean, Trump was president.
I don't understand that statement, because she's been in the White House for over 1,300 days, and she has 80 more to go, and everyone keeps acting like she's got this brand new vision. She's been a legislator. We know what she stands for. I'm from California. She represented my state.
How do you overcome that? If she's going to say, let's leave all this behind, I'm the new way forward.
Yeah, and then she talks about everything you just said before. If there was ever a walking, talking ad for the reason we need to keep the House and the Senate, regardless of the presidency, it's everything she just said. More taxes, more spending. It will tank the economy. Look, the markets right now have a lot of rebound since this bad day about a week ago. Yeah, but that's in spite of the policies coming out of the White House. If we did not have a Republican House and we did not have a split Senate, she would get everything she just asked for. Debt would skyrocket, the deficits would be unbearable, and you would see markets tank. That's look, maybe the economics have changed since when I went to business school, but last time I checked, if you tax and spend like that, it's going to lead to the
beauty of all this is Donald Trump was president, right? Joe Biden was president. Markets went up throughout all of it, on the left and on the right. By the way, debts and deficits went up throughout all of it. I agree. The left and the right. And at least for Kamala Harris, to your point, at least we're starting to learn about what she would do and how her vision, how she would handle it. We've been asking here for 26 days here on the Hill, what's your policy? And at least today, she started to outline some of it. All right, still to come here on the Hill over the next 45 minutes. Bulletproof glass, more security, the new measures to protect Donald Trump since the assassination attempt on his life. We are live from Pennsylvania coming up here in a few. Plus, we're also speaking with the top educator in Oklahoma who wants the Bible mandated in every classroom in his state. Members of his own party now are talking about impeachment. He's talking to us tonight. And would you look at this? Why did Jeff Bezos and his fiancée meet with the Pope at the Vatican? Those images coming up here on the Hill on News Nation. Welcome to Washington. 81 days to go. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. Donald Trump will soon be holding outdoor rallies again with one big change. The Secret Service plans on surrounding the former president's podium with bulletproof glass. It comes a month after a gunman tried to shoot and kill Trump at an outdoor rally in Pennsylvania. Our national correspondent Robert Sherman joins us live tonight in PA, where Trump is holding a rally tomorrow. Robert, are these changes? I mean, the thought of a bulletproof glass around and or surrounding Trump is just, it's hard to comprehend. Are those changes going into effect tomorrow?
Not tomorrow yet, Blake. I mean, the goal is to get back to a sense of normalcy. Granted, normalcy put in quotes, consider that we'd be talking about glass surrounding a former president here. Mm-hmm. But these would be to try and get back to what we've seen in the past with the former president having these outdoor rallies at these parks and at these venues. He's going to be inside once again tomorrow in Wilkes-Barre. And for the event after that in New York, Pennsylvania, he'll be inside again. But the goal is to get to these outdoor kind of events, which we have not seen since that assassination attempt took place in Butler, Pennsylvania last month. There's one other element to all of this as well, Blake, is that we know that there have been talks with the Secret Service to bolster the former president's Secret Service detail. And reportedly, that will be happening, drawing some of the resources from President Biden's detail. Again, at face value, not typical, but President Biden, frankly, has not been traveling nearly as much as the former president currently is right now. So we'll see how all this shakes out on the campaign trail. Very short term, going to continue to be inside, but we'll see if these outdoor events resume soon. Blake?
All right, Robert Sherman, live for us in Pennsylvania tonight. Robert, thank you. What about, I mean, it is remarkable, Denise, to think about that it could actually get to that. Having to put Donald Trump behind a bulletproof glass.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you've got a Pope-mobile that kind of has the same thing.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Because we value him so much, I mean, you would think the leader of the free world would get at least the same.
Do you think it's not crazy,
sad,
for lack of a better term?
Right?
It's sad,
it's sad, but I think that it's smart.
It's sad, and I want to know what the hell's going on with the Secret Service. Not only did you have the incredible oversight of allowing a bullet to get near the president from 150 yards away in Butler, Pennsylvania, but you had Secret Service agents with Kamala Harris spray painting a security camera so they could take a leak inside a salon. And then you had another member of Trump's Secret Service detail, going on an unauthorized leave to breastfeed when she was on duty with the former commander-in-chief. I don't know what the hell's going on over there. They got to figure it out. All
right. Meantime, a Republican congressman on the task force investigating the assassination attempt is accusing the FBI of obstructing the probe. He is Clay Higgins, Republican from Louisiana. He's in law enforcement. He claims that the feds have released the shooter's body to be cremated days before he could examine it. Higgins, writing in a report, quote, "The problem with me not being able to examine the actual body is that I won't know 100% if the coroner's report and the autopsy report are accurate." Higgins also says the FBI scrubbed the crime scene days after the shooting, calling that unheard of. The FBI has pushed back against Higgins' accusations, saying it followed all normal procedures. Scott, you've been in law enforcement for quite some time.
Bizarre.
How so?
He's not qualified to make these determinations. He's an elected official.
He's on the task force, though.
Yeah, he may be on the task force, but that doesn't mean they preserve the body for 30 days, 60 days. It's almost impossible, even if it's in the freezer at the coroner's office. But this is what happens.
What is the right procedure?
Well, they just followed it. For example, you have the autopsy, right? You take photographs, right? You have written analysis. You go through all of those checkpoints because he's right about one thing. This is all evidence, and if somebody's prosecuted, if he had a co-conspirator and what have you, that body is evidence, but once they do the autopsy, once they take the pictures, once they do the write-ups and what have you, law enforcement has no right to keep that body from his family. And once they check off all those points, they release the body, whether it's for cremation or for burial, to his family. There's nothing wrong here, unless he's got some empirical data or evidence to show that somehow they rushed it or they wiped it or there's some conspiracy other than in his head. Or maybe he's just got a morbid curiosity about dead bodies.
Is the task force going to stay apolitical?
No. And comments like that are the reason, because the underpinning of those remarks is that you can't trust the coroner, you can't trust the forensics that have already been done, that there's a cover-up. Like, no congressman is qualified to be examining dead bodies. That is ridiculous.
It's a dead body.
I've never heard of that in my life.
The fact that y'all are responding this way is evidence of nothing can ever be depoliticized. Because if it had been on the other side, I don't think you would have said the same thing.
We wouldn't say it on the other side.
That we're in America. But I think it's so strange that there seemed to be just this rush. You know, everyone knew that everyone's going to be interested in both the autopsy reports and everything else. I don't know why they didn't just give it extra time to make sure everyone was satisfied.
If Jamie
what are you talking about the body?
A dead body, I would say he's crazy.
You don't need anything else. Once someone's dead, you have the autopsy, you have the reports, you have the photographs, right? You can tell from a photograph how the bullet entered and exited the body.
All right. The disagreement there. Still got much more ahead. Here on the Hill, the vice president lays out her vision for the economy. But what about immigration? The new numbers from the southern border. Is the president's plan working? The head of the Border Patrol Council joins us live here on the Hill. 4 minutes away. Other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. 81 days until Election Day, and today, for the first time, we heard Vice President Harris outline her policy proposals. Home affordability, taxes, grocery prices, and medical costs at the heart of the plan.
Elected president, I will make it a top priority to bring down costs and increase economic security for all Americans. As president, I will take on the high costs that matter most to most Americans, like the cost of food.
All right, so that is some of what we got today, but so far, no rollout from Harris on issue number 2, immigration, which was supposed to be the staple of her policy portfolio as vice president. Now, the Harris team has not signaled when that fully fleshed out plan might come. This is among the most difficult issues for Kamala Harris going forward. For example, from the first month of the Biden-Harris administration through September of last year, we know there were more than 6.2 million encounters at the southern border. Once that got to that point, the White House then engaged in border security negotiations last fall. That fell apart earlier this year once Donald Trump warned Republicans he didn't approve of the deal that was being negotiated. In June, while still a presidential candidate, President Biden then issued executive actions to try to curb the number of encounters. It seems to be working at this point in time. Today, for example, Customs and Border Protection revealed that in July, there were north of 56,000 encounters at the southern border. That is the lowest monthly total since September 2020. Joining us now is the former National Border Patrol President, Brandon Judd. Brandon, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it. You see those numbers. Is the plan working?
It's not. What they're not taking into account is they're not taking into account that the cartels, they understand the political dynamics in the United States. They understand the ebbs and flows. They understand that high numbers going right into an election is very bad for them. They constantly ramp up their operations after an election, leading into an election, and then they drop those numbers. But then you look at those numbers.
So you say this has nothing to do with policy?
No, it has very little to do with policy. All we have to do, and evidence is Title 42. Look at exactly what happened in Title 42. We had intelligence that there were more than 20,000 people lined up ready to cross the border at the end of Title 42, and very few people crossed because the cartels recognized that it was going to be very bad for their business, so they stopped them from crossing. And that's what we're seeing now. All you have to do is look at the number of people. Look at the number of people that are crossing through the Darien Gap on a daily basis, and it's still the same numbers. They're just waiting until the cartels are going to allow them to come into the United States.
Let me ask you both about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris real quick. Donald Trump killed the deal, essentially, that the Border Patrol union supported. What do you want to see out of Donald Trump at the border if he's president again?
Well, we want to see him re-implement the same plans that were so successful that allowed us to drop illegal immigration to 45-year lows. It also allowed us to go after the cartels. That's exactly what we want to see. Look, although I supported that border bill, I knew that it was a lot less than what we could do with proper policy. We supported it simply because it was better than the status quo. Not that it was the best thing out there. The best thing that we have ever seen was President Trump's policies. Those bear out. Why haven't
you endorsed him yet? Why hasn't the union endorsed him yet?
I'm the former president. I have no idea. But I went on CNN. I was on CNN right before I retired, and I specifically said that I support the President of the United States. The National Border Patrol Council supports the President of the United States. Look, it's been an open endorsement. That couldn't be any more clear than what we've clearly shown. I mean, the National Border Patrol Council put out that they will never endorse Biden.
You should have said that on NewsNation, but neither here nor there. Anyways, Kamala Harris. Let me ask you about. I was asked on CNN. There you go. Kamala Harris. She said this recently out on the trail. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Earlier this year, we had a chance to pass the toughest bipartisan border security bill in decades. But Donald Trump tanked the deal. But when I am president, I will sign the bill.
Is that enough as it relates to her and her policy? We don't have a fully fleshed out.
It's not, because it doesn't go far enough. It's better, again, it's better than the status quo, but it doesn't go far enough. It will not allow us to go after the criminal cartels, and that's what we have to be able to do. Again, let's go right back to those numbers. And although the numbers are lower right now, they're still 2 times higher than what they should be. Jay Johnson said that if we hit 1,000 apprehensions per day, we're in a crisis. Jay Johnson was the DHS secretary under President Obama. We're still at 17, 18, 2,000 apprehensions every single day. So her policies are not working. And I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say 1,800 right now, so it's right at that level, yeah.
Correct. So we're double what we're supposed to be. So her policies clearly are not working. We have to do a lot more, and we also have to take into account what the cartels. They're a business. They understand the ebbs and flows in politics in the United States.
Brandon Judd, got to leave it there. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time and the perspective. Talk to you soon.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
You as well. All right. Meantime, Donald Trump set to hold a rally in the key swing state of Pennsylvania tomorrow. And we got some new numbers out today as to where Pennsylvania is right now. You talk to anyone and they'll basically tell you whoever wins or loses Pennsylvania probably ends up winning this race. So here's the top line number right now. This is an Emerson College poll. You see basically a dead heat, right? 48-49, though Kamala Harris has been closing the gap. She was down a handful. Let's go under the hood here for a second. And a couple things that stood out to me with this, I want to point out for you here. So I broke this out 2 different ways. Independents and suburban voters. So when you look purely at independents, right, we know how Democrats and Republicans feel with both sides. Trump is +3, 48-45. All right, that's a check mark for Donald Trump. But then let's come over here because suburban voters, once you start breaking these down one way or another, they are going to have a huge say in who ends up winning. And it's Kamala Harris, +3, 50-47. But remember, there's been really 2 races, right? It was the Trump-Biden race and now the Trump-Harris race. So what about new voters? Folks in Pennsylvania who say, you know what, I'm going to be voting for the very first time. And would you look at this? New voters, Keystone State. You got a 60-30 differential for Kamala Harris. Is this a sign of, we talked about it all the time, it was a race where I want to get past Trump and Biden, I want something new. Could that be the case in Pennsylvania with new voters going to her? We will see. And then what about as it relates to voter registration, right? So if you've watched us the last few days, you know we've really keyed in on these numbers. The good and the bad for Democrats in that state, this is the bad, right? 330,000 Democrats they've lost the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania, 330 Democrats as it relates to registered voters since the last election. You see Republicans are basically at dead even. The others, the third-party candidates, have been picking up. So that's not a good number in that state for Democrats, right? But let's do some basic back-of-the-envelope math. 3.9 million registered Democrats as of July in Pennsylvania. 3.5 million registered Republicans. So that's plus 350,000 Democrats, give or take. TW, if you've got a race that's seemingly a dead heat, right?
Yep.
But Democrats have 350,000 more registered folks in that state. How does your guy pull it out?
Well, actually, my knee-jerk reaction was that's not as bad as I thought it could be. And the reason I say that is because this has been the longest honeymoon period that we've seen in a long time. You can't turn on TV, go on social media without seeing drooling, fawning coverage over Kamala Harris. Yet she hasn't done one sit-down live interview. She hasn't answered a hard question. And the reason is because you talk about that topic right before is immigration. You just talked about 6.2 million people. Now, we can debate, was she border czar, was she not? Was she in charge of migration? Hold on.
She wasn't.
Hold on. Okay, then she's in charge, so she's a bad statesperson. Because the fact of the matter is, there's massive southern migration coming north. So she's either a bad cop or a bad statesperson. You make the pick. Neither is good. 176 people on the terror watch list came over last year alone. Those are the only people apprehended. There's far more out there. That's a winning issue. Donald Trump can do good in Pennsylvania.
Plus 350,000 D. If both sides pull out basically the exact same amount, it's advantage Democrat, right? Unless there's some massive third-party tilt.
Well, I think what you're seeing is that with the departure from the Democratic Party, that those registration numbers are staggering, and it should sound alarms in that state for Democrats. But what you're seeing is that the party is moving away from the type of Democrats that live in Pennsylvania. And so I think the reason Trump's able to pull ahead is because they're not progressives in Pennsylvania. They're actually a different kind of old school Democrat, and they don't like what they're seeing.
I gotta run real quick, but to both of you, for all the noise about Kamala Harris, that poll had Donald Trump winning in Pennsylvania.
Here's the one thing about that poll that I found interesting.
Yep.
Harris leads with women 54-41.
Your takeaway?
Absolutely. If I'm state party chair in Pennsylvania for the Dems, I need to get these new voters out. I need a massive voter mobilization plan.
Okay.
And we win Pennsylvania if we do that well.
All right. Just a reminder, though, for all that's going on and Donald Trump there tomorrow, you've got a toss-up and probably the most important one of them all. All right, still to come here on the Hill. School back in session, don't you know? And students in Oklahoma are seeing Bibles in the classroom. But is the mandate going to cost the state's top education official his job? His name is Ryan Walters, members of his own party. There's a lot going on there. A lot going on with this issue, other issues in Oklahoma, and members of his own party want to impeach him. And you know what Ryan Walters said today? He told Republicans, bring it on, impeach me. And Ryan joins us on the other side of the break. 4 minutes. Stay with us.
Tonight on Balance, he's rejoining the Trump campaign he ran in 2016. Corey Lewandowski tells Leland what he thinks has changed and how the former president can regain momentum. Tonight at 7/6 Central, only on NewsNation.
Of the country and in the state of Oklahoma, a mandate to incorporate the Bible into every public school classroom is in effect. But the man behind it, Oklahoma's top educator, Ryan Walters, is facing a revolt from his own political party. Over 24 state Oklahoma House Republicans have signed a letter calling for an investigation and possible impeachment of Walters for a host of issues, including his performance, spending, and priorities, they say. The state representative leading the charge says the superintendent's behavior has been, quote, unprofessional, beneath the dignity of a statewide elected official, and most importantly, quote, contrary to the best interests of the taxpayers and students of the state of Oklahoma. Joining us once again, Ryan Walters, who today said essentially bring it on. Ryan, you held a press conference there in your home state and said if you want to start the impeachment proceedings, let's go. Start on Monday. Thanks for being back with us here on the Hill. So for those of us, for those who don't know sort of all the politics in your state, there's really two things going on, right? There's the conversation about Bibles in classrooms, and then there's the inquiry from Republicans and Democrats in your state who basically think you're not doing a good job. And I just wonder if you being upfront and being so vocal about such a controversial issue that this is, the Bible in classrooms, that it even has members of your own party saying, we got to get this guy out of here.
Yeah, I mean, look, the elitist special interest Republican class are fighting me. There's no doubt about it. Listen, these are left-wing Republicans, the speaker and his lapdog there, Mark McBride, that have been attacking me for 3 years. The reality is they've been bought and paid for by the teachers union. The National Teachers Union put a target on my head when I put Bible back in schools. Randy Weingarten had a picture of my face and said he's one of our top targets in the country. So they've worked together with some Republicans in our state, mainly our speaker and that gentleman I mentioned, and they've been targeting me. Those are all lies. Everything in that letter is a lie. And so that's why I said, hey, yeah, let's have an impeachment trial Monday. Let's lay it out there and let people hear what's going on.
So I just heard you say left wing. There was a comment that you made recently, Ryan, that really caught my attention. Here's what you told a local station there in Oklahoma. What we've seen are a group of moderate Republicans that have partnered with Democrats. Those are folks that want pornography in your kids' school. They don't want Bible in schools. You describe Republicans who are coming against you as moderate Republicans. Ryan, what's your definition of a moderate Republican?
I think you just heard it. I mean, the reality is, like I said, the speaker and his number two right there have been fighting me on all of these issues. School choice.
No, but what is it? Because there's Republicans in your state, and you immediately label them as moderate or liberals, and that's sort of what I'm trying to get at. What's your view of what an actual Republican is?
Absolutely. If you think it's appropriate to have pornography in our kids' school, that's a very moderate Republican view. If you believe that it is appropriate to allow boys and girls sports, that's a very moderate view. If you believe that parents shouldn't be in charge of their kids' education, that's a very moderate view. If you believe the Bible should be censored out of the classroom, meaning we should take it out of history so kids never know when it was referenced throughout American history, that's a pretty moderate view, if not left-wing view. So that's what I would define.
Is it a Republican view to mandate from the top down what books are in classes and which aren't?
Well, listen, we have curriculum standards. We make sure that when kids actually go to a history class, the teacher doesn't say, I don't want you to learn about the Civil War or the Civil Rights Act. So, yeah, we make sure that kids understand our history. So I think it's incredibly appropriate that parents know when my kid goes to a history class, we don't have a teacher that chunks the American Revolution or the Civil Rights Movement. So, yeah, we have to have standards so parents know what's being taught.
So let's get back. So this issue about the Bible in classrooms and it being mandated, Ryan. One of the things that the lawmakers, Republicans and Democrats, are coming after you for is basically your performance. And here's what they say. They say you, quote, defied the legislature's appropriations authorities by refusing to execute required funding for critical asthma inhalers. And I just wonder if you're mandating Bibles and that's like an automatic go, let's do it, no questions asked. Shouldn't inhalers for children be an auto mandate, no questions asked?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lie. So again, you've got
What's a lie?
Speaker that's lied about we've got inhalers in the classrooms. We have been working to do that. School just started here. We've been working to do that. And again, these are things that we've been doing in Oklahoma. So what you've got is a group of individuals that's why I said, let's have an impeachment trial.
Well, you question though, but didn't you question the group that is providing the inhalers and that's why all of this was slowed down?
Look, we're making sure everything's done through a legal process. That's not stopping things. That's making sure that all your bases are covered. That's what we've done. We've made sure everything is available. We're going to continue to do that. But what we've continued to do is to abide by the law. That's what's been twisted by, again, someone with political motives here, which is why I'm calling them out. Again, hey, let's bring on transparency. Let's have a full impeachment hearing. But the reality is I've provided all this information. I've provided all the legal memos. I've provided all the legal documentation of what we're doing, when, and timelines. So it's just a complete fake controversy.
Ryan Walters, I will say this, you are always available and always come on. You're in the news a lot, and we thank you for talking to us here on the Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You got it. There's a lot there. We could talk to Ryan all day long. Got to move on. Speaking of religion, by the way, the leader of the Catholic Church took time to meet with the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his fiancée, Lauren Sanchez, this week at the Vatican. Would you look at that? Sanchez posting on her Instagram account, quote, it was an honor for Jeff and me to spend time with His Holiness Pope Francis at his home in the Vatican. His wisdom, warmth, and humor were deeply touching. The couple spoke, they said, about the urgent need for climate action with the Pope, an issue His Holiness has warned world leaders about. Bezos, by the way, not the first billionaire to travel to the Vatican. Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg have also been there as well, meeting with the Pope. Still to come here on the Hill, the Democratic National Convention kicks off next week. So what can we expect? Leland Vitter, host of On Balance. On the other side of the break, stay with us. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. So both Vice President Kamala Harris and the former President Donald Trump do not have a pet. However, their running mates do. Today, the Ohio Senator J.D. Vance seen in this video walking his German Shepherd Atlas aboard a plane in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And could it be because of this? In the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's dog, Scout, is gaining national attention for starring on the cover of Vogue magazine. This is the digital edition, and you see what they did with the name there. Dog, I don't know. You think they would ever do that for J.D. Vance?
Highly doubt it. I'm thinking they're not on his side.
You think they would ever do that for J.D. Vance?
God, I hope so. It was a Republican president, Warren G. Harding, whose dog first became a national icon.
Oh, there you go.
Laddie boy, look it up.
Vogue has put Jill Biden on its cover twice. Its digital issue once. More than Michelle Obama was on it, and Melania Trump, 0.
Yeah.
0 times.
Shocker.
That's where that's.
If J.D. Vance wins it, I don't think he will. They'll put his dog on the cover.
All right, I'll hold you to it. All right, the artist, by the way, behind the iconic Hope poster of Barack Obama just revealed a new print for Kamala Harris, a portrait of the vice president in blue and white. Would you look at that with the word forward on the bottom? She's looking up and left in basically kind of the same style there. The artist was asked why she did it. And Shepard Fairey explaining, saying, quote, I believe VP Harris and her pick are our best chance forward. You want them doing this?
Sure, why not?
Does it kind of set the bar to Obama levels?
A picture is worth 1,000 words, and she's going to be this generation's Obama.
Feels like it.
You ready to call her that?
It's a movement.
It's a movement.
No.
I don't know if she's
That's
there
not a surprising answer.
tell me what you got here on NewsNation.
So we just launched the first digital version of my show, Kurt's Country, on NewsNation's YouTube right now. And it's really just about my adventures in country music. We talk a lot about walking through different worlds. I get the opportunity to walk through country music a lot in different places, and this show chronicles my adventures.
All right, great show, by the way. Thanks to have you all in. That's the take out your phone right now and scan it. Kurt's Country. I was actually Bardella. I was watching some of it last night. Believe it or not, it's pretty cool. Kurt was in a bar in Delaware talking to a country music star there. All right, it is back to school for many students across the country this year. Leland Vitter, you're going to get into that, host of On Balance. What do you got coming up on the show here, Leland?
Corey Lewandowski, Donald Trump's new senior campaign advisor from 2016, 2020. We're going to ask him what he's going to double down on from 2016 and what he is going to perhaps do less of from the loss in 2020.
We saw that video there. You got to wonder if that's going to be the scene at the DNC next week. You're going to be there in Chicago.
We'll be there in Chicago, obviously, and I think more interesting,